I am Cynthia de Lorenzi, and I want to thank you for tuning in today for our CEO Chick Chat series. Today's going to be a little bit different, and we're going to see a little bit of the wrestling of control between powerful women, because normally, as you know, when you turn into the series, I'm the one who's doing the interview, and we've turned the tables today, and I'm going to be interviewed. And I didn't really think about it until this morning, and I realized I'm nervous because I don't want you to discover this is all smoke and mirrors, and I'm not a person. So I want to welcome you. We are filming this morning here at Pillsbury Winthrop Shaw Pittman, who is our sponsor for this incredible series of these amazing discussions with the most incredible women that are influencing where we are today. But today, before I turn it over, and I know Kelly's like, stop.
I'm fine.
Yeah. Today we have Kelly Harmon, who is right now you are
Vice President of Marketing.
Vice President of Marketing at Carousel
Industries.
Industries, which is based up in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And Kelly was the inspiration behind our series here. Kelly and I one day had coffee, and she said, you know, it's always hard trying to meet with people and they want to meet. She said, I'm just going to have this idea. I'm going to set one day a month where I'm going to be hanging out at La Madeleine's and people come have coffee. And following that, I kept thinking, this is such a great idea. Let's
Turn it into an event.
yeah, so that's what we do. So anyway, okay, Kelly.
I just wanted to have coffee. I was just like, she's the one who turned it into CEO Chick Chat, which has taken off and certainly far exceeded what any of us thought it would become. And so kudos to you and your great interviewing capabilities. I have some big shoes to fill today, and so I think we're both a little bit nervous.
Definitely.
What I wanted to do is really start out, because I think, you know, people have a general understanding of success in the city and you, and they may have some preconceived ideas about you that we're going to shatter today. And I thought it might be interesting to sort of start with your background. I think you had an unusual childhood. And, you know, as a friend of yours as well, I know that childhood, but I thought it might be fun for you to share that with the audience first, because I think it formed you as you
You know, it didn't seem unusual to me at the time, but my father was a fighter pilot in the Navy. And when I was growing up, they moved you pretty often as a fighter pilot because you needed to be coast to coast depending on what ship you are. He was an aircraft carrier pilot, which if you think about how crazy that is, take a jet plane and land it on a boat.
Yeah, and catch it on a rubber band.
And catch it on a rubber band. Seems like a great, who thought of that idea? I mean, you know, what science is behind that? But I ended up, because we moved so often, I never attended a school more than 1 year my entire life growing up. From nursery school until I graduated from high school, I was never in the same school more than a year.
And was that all in the U.S. or was it traveling?
I ended up graduating in a high school in Japan. So I lived in Japan for 5 years. So that's really where I concluded. But we moved even when we were in Japan.
Oh my. Okay. So when you were going, I mean, was it an American school that you were going to in Japan?
It was when I first got there. I went to Yohai, and my schools were really interesting facilities. Yohai used to be a prison camp, and then it was an insane asylum. So all our classrooms still had bars on the windows, and the place where you check in with the nurse. I mean, it was very
There's
weird.
schools like that here, but they're usually in not very good neighborhoods.
Yeah. No. So that's yeah. No. We still have bars on there, and you could just kind of sit in class and imagine that somebody was either held prisoner or was in a straitjacket in this room. I mean, maybe that's really fitting for high school after all. Maybe that's the way we should make high school. So
I have the similar background, having grown up overseas and then coming to the States. You know, either I was in high school, you were just leaving high school. What was the difference? I mean, what was the biggest like culture shock or thing when you came back to the States after having spent so much time?
Well, it was like coming to a foreign country, because I was very young when I left, and you have to realize that the number of Americans that you see is very small. My graduating high school class had 60 people in it, which seemed like a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I came back, and the first time, well, one, I didn't know about taxes. And the first time I ever bought something in the United States, I went to pay for it. It was like $62, and it was $62 plus. And I go, no, it's just $62. She goes, no, this is the amount. I go, no, it's right here, $62. She goes, tax. I go, what's tax? I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. So it was becoming, and then walking in a mall, you would see more kids than I was ever with when I lived overseas.
Right.
And then whenever kids came into Japan, which by the way, I'm really thinking very much of my beautiful, I felt like that was always home to me. I love Japan, and my heart is broken about the tsunami and the earthquake and now the nuclear disaster. So my heart's breaking. I mean, I'm just paralyzed, I think, from what's happened there. But whenever kids would be stationed there, the first thing every kid on the base would want to go, what's the music? Because we got 1 hour of American music a day.
Oh, really?
We never, and all TV was said in Japanese, which is hysterical to watch I Love Lucy in Japanese, you know? You go, Ricky! But you kind of wanted to know what was going on in the United States.
So how do you think that affected you and the way that you interact with people today? I mean, how do you think that?
Well, I think it's for a lot of kids who moved around a lot.
Yeah.
I think you make friends very easily. You engage in discussions in a whole different way. You don't wait for lifetime, relationships to form, because your lifetime relationships form in 5 minutes. You kind of get in and you get those established. You don't have the opportunity. So you really break away from all that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love what I do, because I love people.
Right.
I always say that if you take the time to talk to anybody, every single person you have the opportunity to get to know is worthy of a lifetime movie. I don't care if it's the person who's catering your meal, who's cleaning your offices, the guy out there sweeping right now. If we went out and talked to him, we would find out he's probably got the most amazing story, how he came to be here, what challenges he's facing. So if you take the time.
That's true. And I think also, like you, the ability to make friends quickly, and when you're overseas with people that are the same way you are, then when you come to the States, like the first time I went to school here, nobody talked to me for like 3 months because I was different, I had an accent, and so it's probably really that same trying to assimilate. Now, you came back to the States, and as you were growing up, you had an unusual career aspiration. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
All my friends laugh at. When I was growing up, I came from, number one, a military family, so the role models I saw were fathers were fighting and mothers were caring. So mothers stayed home and cared. I didn't see women who worked outside the home. So my perception of what your opportunities were for women were very much built around what I had seen before.
Sure.
So you could be a mother. I wasn't born with that gene. I have children and I love them and I love being a mother, but I didn't see that. You could be a nurse. That's what women could do. You could be a teacher, or you could be a nun. So I thought about all those career choices. So I went in a convent for a year. I was going to be a nun. But this was my thinking. Because all the nuns I ever saw were never from where they were, so you get to travel. And I wanted a job that had traveling. So I thought if I was a nun, I could go all over the world. I really wasn't worried about couture or anything like that,
So being, actually, that's good. You weren't really worried about couture, and people would look at you today and see, wow, you're just always so put together, and you're so, fashionable. But this is really, as she was saying earlier, this is smoke and mirrors, actually. So what is tell them what the real Cynthia is like.
Well, to tell you the truth, my husband dresses me. And my girlfriends who have ever been off with me for a weekend absolutely will swear that
total tomboy.
I am a total tomboy. I mean, I just, I actually, Kelly spent the night at my home last night just so we could drive in together. And I really did beef it up for her. I had on sweatpants with kind of a shirt that almost matched.
Right.
So, but at home, if matching, absolutely. My poor husband, but my husband picks out my clothes and my shoes and everything I wear.
When I see her and she's particularly well put together, I'll say, "Oh, Larry outdid himself today," and he is her style. How did you meet Larry? Because he's your second husband.
He is.
Talk a little bit about that.
I was in Fort Worth, Texas, and I was divorced at the time, and I was actually dating somebody who needed to buy a new car, and so Larry had posted the car in the newspaper, and we'd gone to look. This was the second car we went to look at, and he called the guy earlier and said, Larry said, when the guy called, he said, "Look, I'm gonna play golf, so maybe call me at 2." And so we called at 2 from Arlington, Texas, and went over to Fort Worth, Texas. And I was looking at this gorgeous little cream-colored coupe, the Mercedes coupe, and I just loved the car. And my boyfriend at the time and Larry came walking out, and they're laughing, and I go, how bizarre, you just meet somebody and you're laughing. They knew each other and didn't recognize each other on the phone.
Oh, okay.
So so we went in and talked, and
Larry stole you from that guy.
well, kind of like that, but it wasn't like immediately, But my boyfriend at the time was over in Dallas, and he said, I shouldn't probably say this because something like illegal happened, but I think that, yeah. But anyway, so he called and he says, I need you. Larry had bought the car out of an estate. And so my boyfriend was over in Dallas at the time in a meeting. He goes, I need you to go over and have Larry sign the title. I said, well, he can't really sign the title. He goes, no, well, it's being taken care of. I said, he can't sign the title, Bob, because the woman who owned the car is deceased. He goes, just go over, because he's in a meeting, he can't say, just go over and get the title. I said, okay, fine, Bob, but I just want you to know that dead people don't sign titles. So I was really mad. Like, this is the stupidest thing, but of course they all kind of got it taken care of. So I went over, but I thought, I didn't have any money for lunch that day, and I thought because we're in Texas, so there's just like, you have to be polite. So I figured if I called and said, well, I can be over there around lunch, I could get a free meal. Well, I just wanted, so well, it was really nice. I said, I'll take you to lunch, and we ended up having a 2.5 hour lunch.
And I've seen pictures of you, because I think that Northern Virginia has affected your hair, because your hair used to be Texas hair.
Oh, it used to be very much, well,
I've seen
we
pictures.
have a theory
She
in
had
Texas
hair.
The bigger the hair, the closer to God.
So you're going to be a nun, and then you decided you would just get there with your hair. And
yeah, well, you're still worshiping in some way, And the other saying we have, about jewelry, because, my husband, I used to always ask him, like, is this too much? Because in Texas, you do wear big jewelry. And he goes, honey, we're from Texas. If it ain't gaudy, it ain't enough. So that's kind of the other thing. I said, this is gaudy enough.
And he's a wonderful, I think he's been a wonderful parent to your children.
My kids are very, very lucky because my children were very young when I was divorced, and my children have 2 incredible fathers. They're very lucky. Both of their fathers love them, adore them, care for them very, very much, so they're very, very lucky. I always say Larry's a much better mother than I am. I mean, he's always takes care of the birthdays. I do not even know our wedding anniversary. He's much more feminine than I am, and I didn't mean it that way.
He's from Texas. He's very comfortable in his masculinity, which I think allows him to
it's just not
dress
a question.
you and take care of the So you have a very close family. I've in knowing you and knowing your kids, getting to know your siblings and such. But I think that one of the things that you recently went through is something that some of us are either looking at facing soon or in the middle of right now, and that's sort of that sandwich generation where you're still worried and taking care of your children, but your parents are getting older, and you find yourself where you become that chief caretaker. And so you just talk a little bit about how you recently went through that with your mom and are still actually going through it.
When I moved here, and most people know this and may not know, I moved here in 2002 from Texas, not because I had ambitions to move back to Washington, D.C. or live here. I consider myself my home Texas. My brother passed away, and I took over his IT company, which then passed to my mother. And I knew that my mother and sisters were not experienced or capable of taking over the company, and I also knew her health was failing. And losing her only son and her youngest child was devastating. I really wasn't sure she was going to make it through. So I wanted to be here to care for the estate and all that. So I moved in to take care of my mother, take care of the estate, manage my brother's affairs, and it was probably, which is one of the reasons why Success in the City exists, because it's probably the most stressful period of my life. But caring for a parent is a huge, and many of us will face it because our parents probably did not face it, our life expectancy wasn't. But for those of us who move into that, it is a demanding, daunting responsibility. You're always in this negotiation between parent-child, but you're parenting. And I remember my mother would say things like, I'm not doing well. I said, Mom, I think we need to go to the hospital. She says, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. I said, I'm sorry, this is not a negotiation. This isn't like, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. Get in the car. We're going to the hospital. So it was that kind of thing. It was always just, tug of war.